Hello, I am Daisy. Welcome to my channel. In this video, we are traveling with Odysseus in Homer's Odyssey, written in Greek and translated by Robert Fitzgerald. If you wanted to get a quick backstory of the gods and the demigods and their adventures, it is here in Book 11, titled A Gathering of Shades, that we encounter so many characters that it literally can make your head spin trying to recreate a family tree, which I have tried, by the way. As I mentioned in previous videos on this playlist, which, by the way, if you just found me here at this video and would like to catch up, please visit my book playlist so you can grab the previous books. And don't worry, we'll be right here. Well, maybe on second thought, I don't think I really want to stay here in Book 11. We're in the underworld. It's pretty dark here, and I don't want to stay here longer than is necessary. It's been a bit creepy watching the dead drink blood offerings that Odysseus prepared as per these instructions from Circe, the goddess of magic. They were rather elaborate. Yet, from back here among the shadows, we've heard some pretty interesting stories and adventures from these spirits, as we call them. Though it seems that these dead spirits have too many questions about the living, which leads me to believe that they don't go up for air too often. So I don't think we really want to piss off the gods, huh? Anyway, I didn't realize the impact of Homer's work until I began realizing that this literary piece of work is one of the first written documents of human civilization. I mean, we're going back in time, and from an anthropology point of view, it is priceless. And mind you, back then, they were writing on tablets, papyrus, and what, dried animal skin? Or whatever leathery thing they could carve into? It's really important as we look at these ancient texts, which we consider the Bible, the Old Testament, the Torah, books that are sacred of that period of the turn of the century. They were written, around 400 BC? And Homer's Odyssey was written around, 800, 700 BC? So it's a much earlier document. But either way, we need to understand that there's a world happening around whatever theology is being written. There's culture and politics that is actually written in there. And so, like, the Bible and the Torah were written years after Homer's Odyssey. The stories of the Bible were very much like the stories, in particular this chapter in Book 11 of the Odyssey. The stories of the sacred words were being shared orally around evening meals, campfires. They were retold in the temples, which back then, the temple were like the community centers. For all practical purposes, if you had an ailment, that's where you went to see the doctor, which back then, that was the priestess or the magi. If you needed to check an oracle for some type of consultation, whether it's, a spiritual matter or a legal matter, then you'd check with the oracle who would be at the temple. If you needed to go for higher learning, well, there was usually some prophet or teacher imparting their wisdom through the only way they had available at the time, the spoken word. And I have to give credit where credit is due. And Dr. Hillman, a philologist in classical Greek who has a YouTube channel called Lady Babylon, said something that made so much sense to me. And he said, always check the original sources. He is also the author of a book titled The Chemical Muse, Drug Use and the Roots of Western Civilization. And that book, I believe, is what I'm understanding, is the reason that he is so passionate about going to sources. Because as a student getting his doctorate degree, he was told that he needs to go to the sources, and that's where he's going to get his information. So as he's putting this book together, and he's studying his Greek, and he also did seminary as well. But then he started finding out that there was drug use in the politics of, Rome, Greece back then, and also in what was known that founding religion, there was a lot of drugs, a lot of rituals that involved drugs and sex. And he does have a very compelling question that he asks that comes from the book of Mark. I believe it's chapter 14. And he says, I want to know, because no one else has told me, none of these theologists have told me, what is Jesus doing at 4 o'clock in the morning in a public park with a naked boy? I never thought anything about that. I've actually read that chapter, and for the first time I actually realized when he said it that there was a naked boy in the park running away. So yeah, what was a boy doing in the park with Jesus the night that he was arrested? Anyway, I'll leave that for your speculation. You can visit him at his channel. Now there's one thing, it's called common sense. I don't need a PhD. You don't need a PhD. But then again, some people just don't have that common sense to understand that whatever history is being written is being drawn from the life that's happening, the culture, the food, the music, and that begins to create your foundations of the stories that we're going to tell the future generations, the stories that they're not just there in a vacuum. So when we read, whether it's ancient religious texts or military books or medical journals from Galen, or from poetry from the Iliad, or Homer's Odyssey, or Hesiod's Theogony, in that story we can go in and dive in and use the common sense to pick up the little pieces of what kind of life do we see evolving around the story. I mean, we can pick up so much from what Homer is sharing about the culture, the politics, the beliefs, and the fashion. It's just amazing. I'm like blown away. And hopefully you've been picking up on it too as well. So going back to Homer's epic poetry, they were composed around that 8th century. In the case of these ancient poems, there is a scholarly consensus that these tales existed hundreds of years prior in that oral form, transmitted by, the wandering bards and the minstrels. And now, from my experience, those stories are drawing from real life. So I sit here and wonder, are these tales of the population of the earth? How the earth got populated? Are these parts of that origin story? And is it the reason why there is so much incest in these stories from these gods? And also, were the gods real? And are the gods still real? And is there multiple gods with one mono god? Is there a heavenly hierarchy? Do gods still show themselves and chat with humans? And how do they do it now? Because personally, I have a sensation when I have an energy or a feeling, I become overwhelmed and I feel that I'm getting, like a download, but I haven't had a physical luminous light, except only when I had my near-death experience. But like in my everyday waking, I haven't had the big orb just come in front of me and all of a sudden turn into some luminescence person talking to me. I have not had that experience yet. Maybe you have. I've had a near-death experience, and I've had an experience that is real to me. So I have my answers, but I don't want to say anything because I know that you have yours. And somewhere I know that we're going to find something together that's amazing. So are the gods simply personification of higher or lower qualities that we're working through, like love and war, Venus and Mars? Who came up with the idea of offerings to the gods, or conducting rituals, or these other things that happen in different cults and religions? Offering blood and chanting? Do remnants and rituals of those mythical gods and those beliefs form any part of the structure of the religions of today? Was anything borrowed? Considering that the first recorded story of origin was discovered on a tablet in Sumeria. So, if you have already read the Odyssey, I invite you to bring your toga. You are at the turn of the Bronze Age, And as I bring Homer's words back to life, look around now with new eyes. Book 11, A Gathering of Shades. We bore down on the ship at the sea's edge and launched her on the salt immortal sea. Stepping our masts and spar in the black ship, embarked the Eridu and went aboard in tears, with bitter and sore dread upon us. But now a breeze came up for us astern, a canvas bellying land breeze, hail shipmate sent by the singing nymph with sun-bright hair. So we made fast the braces, took our thwarts, and let the wind and steersman work the ship with full sail spread all day above our coursing, till the sun dipped, and all the waves grew dark upon the fathomless, unresting sea. By night, our ship ran onward toward the ocean's bourne, the realm and region of the men of winter, hidden in mist and cloud. Never the flaming eye of Helios lights on those men at morning, when he climbs the sky of stars, nor in descending earthward out of heaven. Ruinous night being rove over those wretches. We made the land, put Eridu ashore, and took our way along the ocean stream to find the place foretold for us by Circe. There Perimedes and Eurylochus pinioned the sacred beasts. With my drawn blade I spaded up the votive pit, and poured libations round it to the unnumbered dead, sweet milk and honey, then sweet wine, and last clear water. I scattered barley down. Then I addressed the blurred and breathless dead, vowing to slaughter my best heifer for them before she calved, at home in Ithaca, and burned the choice bits on the altar fire. As for Tiresias, I swore to sacrifice a black lamb, handsomest of all our flock. Thus to assuage the nations of the dead I pledged these rites, then slashed the lamb anew, letting their black blood stream into the well pit. Now the souls gathered, stirring out of Erebos brides and young men, and men grown old in pain, and tender girls whose hearts were nude to grief. Many were there too, torn by brazen lance-heads, battle-slain, bearing still their bloody gear. From every side they came and sought the pit with rustling cries, and I grew sick with fear. But presently I gave command to my officers to flay those sheep the bronze cut down, and make burnt offerings of flesh to the gods below, to sovereign Death, to pale Persephone. Meanwhile I crouched with my drawn sword to keep the surging phantoms from the bloody pit till I should know the presence of Tiresias. One shade came first, Elpenor of our company, who lay unburied still on the wide earth as we had left him, dead in Circe's hall, untouched, unmourned, when other cares compelled us. Now when I saw him there I wept for pity and called out to him, "How is this, Elpenor? How could you journey to the western gloom swifter of foot than I in the black lugger?" He sighed and answered, "Son of great Laertes, Odysseus, master mariner and soldier, bad luck shadowed me, and no kindly power. Ignoble death I drank with so much wine. I slept on Circe's roof, then could not see the long steep backward ladder, coming down and fell that height. My neck bone buckled under, snapped, and my spirit found this well of dark. Now hear the grace I pray for, in the name of those back in the world, not here, your wife and father, he who gave you bread in childhood, and your own child, your only son, Telemachus, long ago left at home. When you make sail and put these lodgings of dim death behind, you will moor ship, I know, upon Aiaia Island. There, O my lord, remember me, I pray. Do not abandon me unwept, unburied, to tempt the gods' wrath while you sail for home. But find my corpse and all the gear I had, and build a cairn for me above the breakers, an unknown sailor's mark for men to come. Heap up the mound there, and implant upon it the oar I pulled in life with my companions." He ceased, and I replied, "Unhappy spirit, I promise you the barrow and the burial." So we conversed, and grimly at a distance, with my long sword between, guarding the blood, while the faint image of the lad spoke on. Now came the soul of Anticlea, dead, my mother, daughter of Autolycus, dead now, though living still when I took ship for holy Troy. Seeing this ghost I grieved, but held her off, through pang on pang of tears, till I should know the presence of Tiresias. Soon from the dark that prince of Thebes came forward, bearing a golden staff, and he addressed me. Son of Laertes and the gods of old, Odysseus, master of landways and seaways, why leave the blazing sun, O man of woe, to see the cold dead in the joyless region? Stand clear, put up your sword, let me but taste of blood, I shall speak true. At this I stepped aside, and in the scabbard let my long sword ring home to the pommel silver, as he bent down to the somber blood. Then spoke the prince of those with gift of speech. Great captain, a fair wind and the honey lights of foam are all you seek. But anguish lies ahead. The god who thunders on the land prepares it, not to be shaken from your track, implacable, in rancor for the sun whose eye you blinded. One narrow strait may take you through his blows, denial of yourself, restraint of shipmates. When you make landfall on Thrinacia, first and quit the violet sea, dark on the land you'll find the grazing herds of Helios, by whom all things are seen, all speech is known. Avoid those kind, hold fast to your intent, and hard seafaring brings you all to Ithaca. But if you raid the Beeves, I see destruction for ship and crew. Though you survive alone, bereft of all companions, lost for years, under strange sails shall you come home, to find your own house filled with trouble, insolent men eating your livestock as they court your lady. Ay, you shall make those men atone in blood, but after you have dealt out death, in open combat or by stealth, to all the suitors, go overland on foot and take an oar, until one day you come where men have lived with meat unsalted, never known the sea, nor seen sea-going ships, with crimson bows and oars that fledge light holes for dipping flight. The spot will soon be plain to you, and I can tell you how. Some passer-by will say, "What winnowing fan is that upon your shoulder?" Halt, and implant your smooth oar in the turf, and make it fair sacrifice to Lord Poseidon. A ram, a bull, a great buck boar. Turn back, and carry out pure hecatombs at home to all wide heaven's lords, the undying gods, to each in order. Then a sea-born death, soft as this hand of mist, will come upon you when you are wearied out with rich old age, your countryfolk in blessed peace around you, and all this shall be just as I foretell. When he had done, I said at once, Tiresias, my life runs on then as the gods have spun it. But come now, tell me this, make this thing clear. I see my mother's ghost among the dead, sitting in silence near the blood. Not once has she glanced this way toward her son, nor spoken. Tell me, my lord, may she in some way come to know my presence? To this he answered, I shall make it clear, in a few words and simply. Any dead man whom you allow to enter where the blood is will speak to you, and speak the truth. But those deprived will grow remote again and fade. When he had prophesied, Tiresias' shade retired lordly to the halls of death, but I stood fast until my mother stirred, moving to sip the black blood. Then she knew me and called out sorrowfully to me, Child, how could you cross alive into this gloom at the world's end? No sight for living eyes. Great currents run between, desolate waters, the ocean first, where no man goes a journey without ship's timber under him. Say now, is it from Troy, still wandering after years, that you come here with ship and company? Have you not gone at all to Ithaca? Have you not seen your lady in your hall? She put these questions, and I answered her. Mother, I came here, driven to the land of death in want of prophecy from Tiresias' shade. Nor have I yet coasted Achaea's hills, nor touched my own land, but have had hard roving since first I joined Lord Agamemnon's host by sea for Ilion, the wild horse country, to fight the men of Troy. But come now, tell me this, and tell me clearly, what was the bane that pinned you down in death? Some ravaging long illness, or mild arrows of flying down one day from Artemis? Tell me of father. Tell me of the son I left behind me. Have they still my place, my honors, or have other men assumed them? Do they not say that I shall come no more? And tell me of my wife. How runs her thought? Still with her child, still keeping our domains, or bride again to the best of the Achaeans? To this my noble mother quickly answered, still with her child indeed she is, poor heart, still in your palace hall. Forlorn her nights and days go by, her life used up in weeping. But no man takes your honored place. Telemachus has cares of all your garden plots and fields, and holds the public honor of a magistrate, feasting and being feasted. But your father is country bound and comes to town no more. He owns no bedding, rugs, or fleecy mantles, but lies down winter nights among the slaves, rolled in old cloaks for cover, near the embers. Or when the heat comes at the end of summer, the fallen leaves, all round his vineyard plot, heaped into windrows, make his lowly bed. He lies now even so, with aching heart, and longs for your return, while age comes on him. So I, too, pined away, so doom befell me, not that the keen-eyed huntress with her shafts had marked me down and shot to kill me, not that illness overtook me, no true illness wasting the body to undo the spirit, only my loneliness for you, Odysseus, for your kind heart and counsel, gentle Odysseus, took my own life away. I bit my lip, rising perplexed, with longing to embrace her, and tried 3 times, putting my arms around her, but she went sifting through my hands, impalpable as shadows are, and wavering like a dream. Now this embittered all the pain I bore, and I cried in the darkness, "Oh, my mother, will you not stay? Be still, here in my arms. May we not, in this place of death, as well hold one another, touch with love, and taste salt tears' relief, the twinge of welling tears? Or is this all hallucination, sent against me by the Iron Queen Persephone, to make me groan again?" My noble mother answered quickly, "O my child, alas, most sorely tried of men, great Zeus's daughter Persephone knits no illusion for you. All mortals meet this judgment when they die. No flesh and bone are here, none bound by sinew, since the bright-hearted pyre consumed them down. The white bones long examinate to ash, dream like the soul flies, insubstantial. You must crave sunlight soon. Note all things strange seen here, to tell your lady in after days." So went our talk. Then other shadows came, ladies in company, sent by Persephone, consorts or daughters of illustrious men, crowding about the black blood. I took thought how best to separate and question them, and saw no help for it, but drew once more the long bright edge of broadsword from my hip, that none should sip the blood in company, but one by one in order. So it fell that each declared her lineage and name. Here was great loveliness of ghosts. I saw before them all that princess of great ladies, Tyro, Salmoneus' daughter, and she told me, and queen to Cretheus, a son of Aiolos. She had gone daft for the river Enipeus, most graceful of all running streams, and ranged all day by Enipeus' limpid side, whose form the foaming girdler of the islands, the god who makes earth tremble, took and so lay down with her where he went flooding seaward, their bower a purple billow, arching round to hide them in a sea veil, god and lady. Now when his pleasure was complete, the god spoke to her softly, holding fast her hand. "Dear mortal, go enjoy. At the turn of seasons, winter to summer, you shall bear me sons. No love-making of gods can be in vain. Nurse our sweet children tenderly and rear them. Home with you now, and hold your tongue, and tell no one your lover's name, though I am yours, Poseidon, lord of surf that makes earth tremble." He plunged away into the deep sea well, and she grew big with Peleus and Neleus, powerful vessels in their time of Zeus. Peleus lived on broad Iolco's seaboard, rich in flocks, and Neleus at Pylos. As for the sons born by that queen of women to Cretheus, their names were Aeson, Pheres, and Amythaon, expert charioteer. Next after her I saw Antiope, daughter of Aesopus. She too could boast a god for lover, having lain with Zeus and borne 2 sons to him, Amphion and Zethos, who founded Thebes, the upper city, and built the ancient citadel. They sheltered no life upon that plain, for all their power, without a fortress wall. And next I saw Amphitrion's true wife, Alcmene, mother, as all men know, of Lionish Heracles, conceived when she lay close in Zeus' arms, and Megare, high-hearted Creon's daughter, wife of Amphitryon, unswearing son. I saw the mother of Odysseus, Apicaste, whose great unwitting deed it was to marry her own son. He took that prize from a slain father. Presently the gods brought all to light that made the famous story. But by their fearsome wills he kept his throne in dearest Thebes all through his evil days, while she descended to the place of death, god of the locked and iron door. Steeped down from a high rafter, throttled in her noose, she swung, carried away by pain, and left him endless agony from a mother's furies. And I saw Chloris, that most lovely lady, whom for her beauty in the olden time Neleus wooed with countless gifts and married. She was the youngest daughter of Amphion, son of Isos. In those days he held power of Orchomenos over the Menai. At Pylos then a queen she bore her children, Nestor, Chromios, Periclymenos, and Pyrrho too, who turned the heads of men with her magnificence. A host of princes from nearby lands came courting her, but Neleus would hear of no one, not unless the suitor could drive the steers of giant Iphiclus from Phylace, longhorns broad in the brow, so fierce that one man only, a diviner, offered to round them up. But bitter fate saw him bound hand and foot by savage herdsmen. Then days and months grew full and waned. The year went wheeling round, the seasons came again, before at last the power of Iphicos, relenting, freed the prisoner, who foretold all things to him. So Zeus' will was done. And I saw Leda, wife of Tyndarus, upon whom Tyndarus had sired twins indomitable, Castor, tamer of horses, and Polytices, best in the boxing ring. Those two live still, though life-creating earth embraces them. Even in the underworld, honored as gods by Zeus, each day in turn one comes alive, the other dies again. Then after Leda to my vision came the wife of Olyus, in Pemedia, proud that she had once held the flowing sea and borne him sons, thunderers for a day, the world-renowned Odos and Ephialtes. Never were men on such a scale bred on the plowlands and the grainlands, never so magnificent any after Orion. At 9 years old they towered 9 fathoms tall, 9 cubits in the shoulders, and they promised fur upon Olympus, heaven broken by battle cries the day they met the gods in arms. With Osa's mountain peak they meant to crown Olympus, and over Osa Pelion's forest pile for footholds up the sky. As giants grown they might have done it, but the bright son of Zeus, by Leto of the smooth braid, shot them down while they were boys unbearded. No dark curls clustered yet from temples to the chin. Then I saw Phaedra, Procris, and Ariadne, daughter of Minos, the grim king. Odysseus took her aboard with him from Crete, for the terraced land of ancient Athens, but he had no joy of her. Artemis killed her on the Isle of Dia, at a word from Dionysus. Maria then, and Clymene, and that detested queen, Eriphyle, who betrayed her lord for gold. But how name all the women I beheld there, daughters and wives of kings? The starry night wanes long before I close. Here, or aboard ship, amid the crew, the hour for sleep has come. Our sailing is the gods' affairs, and yours. Then he fell silent. Down the shadowy hall the enchanted banqueters were still. Only the queen with ivory pale arms, already spoke, saying to all the silent men, Phaeacians, how does he stand now in your eyes, this captain, the look and bulk of him, the inward poise? He is my guest, but each one shares that honor. Be in no haste to send him on his way or scant your bounty in his need. Remember how rich, by heaven's will, your possessions are. Then Ichneus, the old soldier, eldest of all Phaeacians, added his word. Friends, here was nothing but our own thoughts spoken. The mark hit square, our duties to her majesty. For what is to be said and done, we wait upon Alcinous' command. At this the king's voice rang. I so command, as sure as it is I who, while I live, rule the sea rovers of Phaeacia. Our friend longs to put out for home, but let him be content to rest here one more day, until I see all gifts bestowed, and every man will take thought for his launching and his voyage. I most of all, for I am master here. Odysseus, the great tactician, answered, Alcinous, king and admiration of men, even a year's delay, if you should urge it, in loading gifts and furnishing for sea, I too could wish it. Better far that I return with some largesse of wealth about me. I shall be thought more worthy of love and courtesy by every man who greets me home in Ithaca. The king said, As to that, one word, Odysseus. From all we see, we take you for no swindler, though the dark earth be patient of so many, scattered everywhere, baiting their traps with lies of old times and of places no one knows. You speak with art, but your intent is honest. The Argive troubles and your own troubles you told us as a poet would, a man who knows the world. But now come tell me this. Among the dead, did you meet any of your peers, companions who sailed with you and met their own doom at Troy? Here's a long night, an endless night before us, and no time yet for sleep, not in this hall. Recall the past deeds and the strange adventures. I could stay up until the sacred dawn as long as you might wish to tell your story. Odysseus, the great tactician, answered, Alcinous, king and admiration of men, there is a time for storytelling. There is also a time for sleep. But even so, if, indeed, listening be still your pleasure, I must not grudge my part. Other and sadder tales there are to tell of my companions, of some who came through all the Trojan spears, clangor and groan of war, only to find a brutal death at home, and a bad wife behind it. After Persephone, icy and pale, dispersed the shades of women, the soul of Agamemnon, son of Atreus, came before me, somber in the gloom, and others gathered round, all who were with him when death and doom struck in Aegisthus' hall. Sipping the black blood, the tall shade perceived me, and cried out abruptly, breaking into tears, then tried to stretch his hands toward me, but could not, being bereft of all the reach and power he once felt in the great torque of his arms. Gazing at him, and stirred, I wept for pity, and spoke across to him. O son of Atreus, illustrious Lord Marshal Agamemnon, what was the doom that brought you low in death? Were you at sea aboard ship and Poseidon blew up a wicked squall to send you under? Or were you cattle raiding on the mainland, or in a fight for some strong point, or women when the foe hit you to your mortal hurt? But he replied at once, Son of Laertes, Odysseus, master of land ways and sea ways, neither did I go down with some good ship in any gale Poseidon blew, nor die upon the mainland, hurt by foes in battle. It was Aegisthus who designed my death, he and my heartless wife, and killed me after feeding me like an oxveld at the trough. That was my miserable end, and with me my fellows butchered like so many swine killed for some troop or feast or wedding banquet in a great landholder's household. In your day you have seen men, and hundreds, die in war, in the bloody press, or down in single combat. But these were murders you would catch your breath at. Think of us fallen, all our throats cut, wine bowl brimming, tables laden on every side, while blood ran smoking over the whole floor. In my extremity I heard Cassandra, Priam's daughter, piously crying as the traitress Clytemnestra made to kill her along with me. I heaved up from the ground and got my hands around the blade, but she eluded me, that whore. Nor would she close my 2 eyes as my soul swam to the underworld or shut my lips. There is no being more fell, more bestial than a wife in such an action, and what an action that one planned. The murder of her husband and her lord. Great God, I thought my children and my slaves at least would give me welcome. But that woman, plotting a thing so low, defiled herself and all her sex, all women yet to come, even those few who may be virtuous. He paused then, and I answered, Foul and dreadful, that was the way that Zeus, who views the wide world, vented his hatred on the sons of Atreus. Intrigues of women, even from the start. Myriads died by Helen's fault, and Clytemnestra plotted against you half the world away. And he at once said, Let it be a warning, even to you, indulge a woman never, and never tell her all you know. Some things a man may tell, some he should cover up. Not that I see a risk for you, Odysseus, of death at your wife's hands. She is too wise, too clear-eyed, sees alternatives too well. Penelope, Icarius' daughter, that young bride whom we left behind, think of it, when we sailed off to war. The baby boy still cradled at her breast. Now he must be a grown man, and a lucky one. By heaven, you'll see him yet, and he'll embrace his father with old-fashioned respect, and rightfully. My own lady never let me glut my eyes on my own son, but bled me to death first. One thing I will advise, on second thought, stow it away and ponder it. Land your ship in secret on your island. Give no warning. The day of faithful wives is gone forever. But tell me, have you any word at all about my son's life? Gone to Orchomenos or Sandy Pylos, can he be? Or waiting with Menelaus in the plain of Sparta? Death on earth has not yet taken Orestes. But I could only answer, Son of Atreus, why do you ask these questions of me? Neither news of home have I, nor news of him, alive or dead, and empty words are evil. So we exchanged our speech in bitterness, weighed down by grief, and tears welled in our eyes, when there appeared the spirit of Achilles, the son of Peleus, then Patroclus, shade, and then Antilochus, and then Aias, first among all the Danaans in strength and bodily beauty, next to the prince Achilles. Now that great runner, grandson of Aeacus, recognized me and called across to me, Son of Laertes and gods of old, Odysseus, master mariner and soldier, old knife, what next? What greater feat remains for you to put your mind on after this? How did you find your way down to the dark where these dim-witted dead are camped forever, the after-images of used-up men? I answered, Achilles, Peleus' son, strongest of all among the Achaeans, I had need of foresight such as Tiresias alone could give to help me, homeward bound for the crags of Ithaca. I had not yet coasted Achaea, not yet touched my land. My life is all adversity. But was there ever a man more blessed by fortune than you, Achilles? Can there ever be? We ranked you with immortals in your lifetime. We Argives did, and here your power is royal among the dead man's shades. Think then, Achilles, you need not be so pained by death. To this he answered swiftly, Let me hear no smooth talk of death from you, Odysseus, light of counsels. Better, I say, to break sod as a farmhand for some poor countryman, on iron rations than lorded over all the exhausted dead. Tell me, what news of the prince, my son? Did he come after me to make a name in battle, or could it be he did not? Do you know if rank and honor still belong to Peleus in the towns of Myrmidons? Or now, maybe, Hellas and Phthia spurn him, seeing old age fetters him, hands and foot? I cannot help him under the sun's rays, cannot be that man I was on Troy's wide seaboard, in those days when I made bastion for the Argives and put an army's best man in the dust. Or I put the whole again. Could I go now to my father's house, 1 hour would do to make my passion and my hands no man could hold hateful to any who shoulder him aside. Now when he paused, I answered, of all that, of Peleus' life that is, I know nothing. But happily I can tell you the whole story of Neoptolemus as you require. In my own ship I brought him out of Scyros to join the Achaean under arms. And I can tell you, in every council before Troy thereafter, your son spoke first and always to the point. No one but Nestor and I could out-debate him. And when we formed against the Trojan line, he never hung back in the mass, but ranged far forward of his troops. No man could touch him for gallantry. Scores went down before him in hard fights man to man. I shall not tell all about each, or name them all. The long roster of enemies he put out of action, taking the shock of charges on the Argives. But what a champion his lance ran through in Eurypylus, the son of Telephus. Cassians in throngs around that captains also died, all because Priam's gifts had won his mother to send the lad to battle, and I thought Memnon alone in splendor ever outshone him. But one fact more, while our picked Argive crew still rode that hollow horse Epeus built, and when the whole thing lay with me, to open the trapdoor of the ambuscade or not, at that point our Daemon lords and soldiers wiped their eyes, and their knees began to quake, all but Neoptolemus. I never saw his tanned cheek change color, or his hand brush one tear away. Rather he prayed me, hand on hilt to sortie, and he gripped his tough spear, bent on havoc for the Trojans. And when we had pierced and sacked Priam's tall city, he loaded his choice plunder and embarked with no scar on him. Not a spear had grazed him, nor the sword's edge in close work. Common wounds one gets in war. Ares, in his mad fits, knows no favorites. But I said no more, for he had gone off striding the field of Asphodel, the ghost of our great runner, Achilles, glorying in what I told him of his son. Now other souls of mournful dead stood by, each with his troubled questioning, but one remained alone, apart. The son of Telamon, Aias, it was, the great shade burning still because I had won favor on the beachhead in rivalry over Achilles' arms. The lady Tethys, mother of Achilles, laid out for us the dead man's battle gear, and Trojan children, with Athena, named the Danaan fittest to own them. Would God I had not borne the palm that day, for earth took Aias then to hold forever the handsomest hand in all feats of war, noblest of the Danaans after Achilles. Gently therefore I called across to him, Aias, dear son of royal Telamon, you would not then forget, even in death, your fury with me over those accursed Climicius arms? And so they were, a bane sent by the gods upon the Argive host. For when you died by your own hand, we lost a tower formidable in war. All we Achaeans mourn you forever, as we do Achilles, and no one bears the blame but Zeus. He fixed that doom for you because he frowned on the whole expedition of our spearmen. My lord, come nearer, listen to our story. Conquer your indignation and your pride. But he gave no reply and turned away, following other ghosts toward Erebos. Who knows if in that darkness he might still have spoken? And I answered. But my heart longed after this to see the dead elsewhere. And now there came before my eyes Minos, the son of Zeus, enthroned, holding a golden staff, dealing out justice among ghostly pleaders arrayed about the broad doorways of death. And then I glimpsed Orion, the huge hunter, gripping his club studded with bronze, unbreakable, with wild beasts he had overpowered in life on lonely mountainsides, now brought to bay on fields of asphodel. And I saw Tydeus, the son of Gaia, lying abandoned over 9 square rods of plain, vultures hunched above him, left and right, riffling his belly, stabbed into the liver, and he could never push them off. This hulk had once committed rape of Zeus's mistress, Leto, in her glory, when she crossed the open grass of Penippus toward Pytho. Then I saw Tantalos put to the torture. In a cool pond he stood, lapped round by water clear to the chin, and being athirst he burned to slake his dry weasand with drink, though drink he would not ever again. For when the old man put his lips down to the sheet of water, it vanished round his feet, gulped underground, and black mud baked there in a wind from hell. Boughs, too, drooped low above him, big with fruit, pear trees, pomegranates, brilliant apples, luscious figs, and olives ripe and dark. But if he stretched his hand for one, the wind under the dark sky tossed the bough beyond him. Then Sisyphos in torment I beheld being rushed about to a tremendous boulder. Leaning with both arms braced and legs striving, he heaved it toward a height, and almost over, but then a power spun him around and sent the cruel boulder bounding again to the plain, whereon the men bent down again to toil, dripping sweat, and the dust rose overhead. Next I saw manifest the power of Heracles, a phantom, this, for he himself was gone feasting amid the gods, reclining soft with Hebe of the ravishing pale ankles, daughter of Zeus and Hera, shod in gold. But, in my vision, all the dead around him cried like affrighted birds. Like night itself he loomed with naked bow and nocked arrow and glances terrible as continual archery. My Hackless rose at the gold sword belt he wore sweeping across him, gorgeous intaglio of savage bears, boars, lions with wildfire eyes, sword fights, battle, slaughter, and sudden death. The smith who had that belt in him, I hope he never made, and never will make another. The eyes of the vast figure rested on me, and of a sudden he said in kindly tones, "Son of Laertes and the gods of old, Odysseus, master mariner and soldier, under a cloud, you too? Destined to grinding labors like my own in my sunny world? Son of Cronian Zeus or not, how many days I sweated out, being bound in servitude to a man far worse than I, a rough master. He made me hunt this place one time to get the watchdog of the dead. No more perilous task, he thought, could be. But I brought back that beast, up from the underworld. Hermes and grey-eyed Athena showed the way. And Heracles, down the vistas of the dead, faded from sight. But I stood fast, awaiting other great souls who perished in time past. I should have met, then, God-begotten Theseus and Perseus, whom both I longed to see. But first came shades in thousands, rustling in a pandemonium of whispers blown together, and the horror took me that Persephone had brought from darker hell some saurian death's head. I whirled then, made for the ship, shouted to crewmen to get aboard and cast off the stern hawsers, and orders soon obeyed. They took their thwarts, and the ship went leaping toward the stream of ocean, first under oars, then with a following wind. End of Book 11. Let's head over to the next video and see what adventures we can join Odysseus with. If you haven't done so yet, hit that like button and subscribe.